Hi, I'm Alden.
I'm Will.
Welcome back to the Chatty AF podcast. This time we have a new guest.
Very special guest.
Absolutely. Would you like to introduce yourself to our viewers?
Sure. Thanks, Alden and Will. I'm Randall Nadeau. I'm the Executive Director of the Foundation for Scholarly Exchange, Fulbright, Taiwan.
Alrighty. So to start today off, we wanted to ask you about sort of how you came to Taiwan, what your job currently is, a little bit about your story.
Oh, okay, thanks. I came to Taiwan 40 years ago, first as an English teacher for a summer in Tainan, and then a year later I came back to study Chinese as part of my PhD program in the U.S. And I fell in love with Taiwan, as many people do. And so I kept coming back, and for 25 years I was a professor in the United States in an East Asian Studies program, and frequently came to Taiwan to do research or attend conferences, things like that. And then about 12 years ago, I think it was 2012, I came to Taiwan on a Fulbright scholarship. I was a Fulbright senior scholar, and I came to Taiwan for a year to do some research on Taiwan history. I was studying history of Taiwan during the Japanese colonial period.
Wow.
And really enjoyed my stay here with Fulbright. And so then 6 years ago, I applied for and was hired as the executive director of the Fulbright program in Taiwan. So I'm finishing my 6th year here now.
Wow. So you've really seen all sides of what Fulbright Taiwan does. You've been on the English teaching side, you've been on the scholarly side as well, and now you're in the managerial side, I suppose.
Yeah.
Wow.
There are 49 Fulbright commissions around the world. So we're one of those 49 commissions, and the commissions are binational. So they exist because of a treaty, in our case, between the U.S. and Taiwan, more than 60 years ago. And now our program is a very large one. We have more than 400 grantees every year. That's about 300 Americans here in Taiwan this year. Many of them are English teachers, but also scholars and students. And we have 100 Taiwanese currently in the U.S. on scholarships. Some of them are professors, some of them are students, and we have Mandarin teachers as well.
Wow. Fulbright program is truly remarkable in scale, especially in Taiwan. I'm always impressed to hear about it. I think it's so amazing. Yeah.
You know, you mentioned sort of your love of Taiwan, and I'm curious, could you boil it down to maybe like 3 things that you particularly are drawn to about Taiwan? Like, what gets you to keep coming back? Because for me, it's like, it's the mountains, it's the people. I worked at an indigenous school last year, and it's just, life-changing. And it was just really, really incredible to, like, get to know this community and get to be a part of their, activities, their day-to-day lives. And so that's what got me to come back for, what is now my 4th grant. But
Nice.
how about for you?
Yeah. Okay. I think there are a lot of things I appreciate about Taiwan, but one is what I describe as hybrid identity, the hybridity or mixed or multiple cultural origins of Taiwanese identity. When I was a professor in the U.S., I would often tell my students, if you can only go to one place in Asia, choose Taiwan, because you will then have exposure to a great variety of cultures and cultural experiences and backgrounds. So that's one thing I really enjoy about Taiwanese society, is the mixture of traditional Chinese, but also Japanese, indigenous, Southeast Asian, Western influences that makes Taiwan a truly fascinating place to live and experience. You can see that in the variety of foods that Taiwan offers, the variety of languages that are spoken here, and ethnicities. Taiwan is actually a very diverse place, so I enjoy that about Taiwan a lot. I'm an historian, so I enjoy the historical story of Taiwan over 3 or 4 centuries, and how Taiwan has evolved and developed and formed its own unique character. So I like the history of Taiwan. And I think the third thing would probably be diversity in respect to geography.
Absolutely.
So, we've got mountains and plains and crowded places and empty places, and it's really fun to explore Taiwan. And I've been able to do that in this job because we have English teachers in 15 cities and counties around Taiwan. So I enjoy visiting those English teachers, like you were in an indigenous community in a mountainous area. But we also have our English teaching assistants in Penghu and Jinmen and a lot of other interesting places.
I was just in Yuli and Hualien last week.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, just totally different world hopping on a train and then 4 hours and then all of a sudden you're in a different world. Remarkably different.
Did you catch it from Zhongli directly?
I did, yeah.
Wow, yeah.
Direct train
Quite
line.
the ride.
Yeah. That'd be one of my things I would mention of my 3 is the transit. I think it's so remarkably accessible. As someone who, I don't have a bicycle license. I have a driver's license, but it's not international, so I'm not in Taiwan. But I have been able to travel and see so much of this country without that's not almost not a hindrance.
The transportation system is really good, and it's fun
remarkable.
to explore. Yeah,
it's amazing. Yeah. I'm just constantly blown away.
Yeah.
And you mentioned the diversity, and Taiwan is small, but the amount that's going on here, I'm still just beginning to form an understanding of it. So you said you were in your 4th year. You've been here a while, and I'm in my 1st year, still working through things. But I think that even for me, I still am able to appreciate it, and I think it's just so interesting.
You're in such an interesting situation too, because not too many Fulbrighters in Taoyuan, but Zhongli is like such a diverse place. Like you were mentioning the diversity, and it's like we've been to like a Thai lady's restaurant, and she makes the most authentic, wonderful food. And we've met Taiaju in in certain restaurants who we've had like conversations with, and it's so interesting because that diversity you were talking about is really present in our little city here.
Nice.
And it's like, it's all of the folks from Southeast Asia, it's indigenous people, it's people speaking Hakkanese, Taiwanese. Right. We have like our own like Kojia Canting, it's so cool. It's so cool.
Exactly.
Zhongli is special despite the fact that it's oftentimes overlooked.
And we're so close to Taipei as well, like only 45 minutes really to the center of Zhongli, even faster if you're going HSR, I think. It's not even a day trip. It's just an hour maybe.
It's you could make it a half day from Taiwan, or Taipei rather.
So what are some of your favorite places in Taiwan, would you say?
Every place I go, I always say this is my favorite place. I mean, one of the things that I
so
really
you love Zhongli
enjoy,
then? You really enjoy it.
Yeah. No, but when, as I mentioned, we have English teachers in 15 cities and counties, and during the mid-year conference, they give a presentation about their local community. And they always say, we live in the best place in Taiwan, which I think is really nice. It means that they're really connecting with their communities.
Yeah. Sure.
And so, so whenever I visit them, I always say, this is my favorite place. But I would say for me, it's Tainan, just because the first time I came to Taiwan, I was in Tainan. And Tainan is the historical capital, and so, that's kind of my home, though I currently live and have for the last 6 years in Taipei.
Now, when it comes to your learning Mandarin, were you learning Mandarin down in Tainan first, or was that?
Yeah, well, not really. I mean, my formal study of Chinese was in Taipei, and when I first started, well, let me backtrack for a minute. I did spend a summer doing intensive language study at the University of Michigan
Okay.
in Ann Arbor. And so that was my first introduction to Chinese.
I see.
And for beginners, and I would say this about English too, and that is to think of language not as a series of independent units, meaning words, but to think of language more like, what do you call that in music?
Like a bar?
A bar of music,
like different bars of music.
That's what they call it,
a
bar of
You have the
music.
notes within the bar.
That's right,
Okay, yeah.
like a whole bar.
Or measures,
Or a measure,
measures bar.
So I think that if we think of language in that way, and we think of phrases rather than single words, I had a teacher, my first exposure to Chinese, she really strongly emphasized this. And I think for her it was because Chinese is a tonal language. And that's one of the things that's most difficult for foreign learners of Chinese, is to master those tones. And so her technique was to use this approach of phrases. And that was very useful. And I think because of that foundation, I have a pretty good pronunciation of Chinese.
Yeah.
And I think in terms of English, it's also, there's a tendency to think of vocabulary and just learning this word, and this word means this. And that's really a hard way to learn a language, actually, because then you have thousands and thousands of points, that you're trying to capture in your mind. But maybe it's better if we just think of more like musical terms, the measure of music.
Sure.
That might help in learning a language.
Oh, sure.
So I still remember her first example of this was we were trying to, we're learning Chinese and this tonal language. And so Alden, maybe I'll ask you, because you've studied Chinese, how do you say read a book in 2 characters?
看书.
看书, that's right. And do you know how to say cut down a tree in 2 characters?
Basically, 看书.
看树.
看树, yeah.
That's right,
totally.
看树.
Yeah.
So I still remember my teacher, and for us foreigners, this is very difficult.
Right.
Because, and we also make the mistake of spelling these in English letters. So it'd be
Right.
K-A-N.
Yeah, with the little
pinyin.
tonal
That's
marking,
right.
fourth and fourth.
Yeah, and then
Or-
S-H-U, right? And then you kind of forget, which tone that would be,
Right.
So my teacher would, I still remember this first-year teacher, and she said, the issue was, before I go to sleep, I read, 我睡觉前喜欢看书. And she said, you would never say, 我睡觉前喜欢看树. You don't cut trees before you sleep. So she taught Chinese in this way, and I think it was a really useful thing to do, because then I didn't have to memorize, it's which is it, kan or kan?
Right.
I just had the whole phrase, so it sounded better to say, 我睡觉前喜欢看书. Yeah.
So you've been using Chinese for a long time. You use it in your professional job.
Yes.
Do you still consider yourself a learner of Chinese?
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, for you students, keep going, because you're going to get better and better. But when you reach a certain point, I noticed I stopped improving. But I guess the language becomes more comfortable, to use, even though I don't think I'm really advancing anymore at this point.
I also feel like I've hit a bit of a plateau myself, but I think something that I also think when it comes to learning a language is input is everything, and there's a certain amount of input that you have to keep adding on to, keep adding into the mix, that after a certain point, maybe starts to wane when life gets in the way, but you have to keep doing it. That's at least for me what I've had to keep telling myself. I need more input. Yeah. but I mean, it's fantastic that you are able to communicate with the language, and
it's remarkable.
Yeah, like what would you say is like one of the most challenging things for you in terms of like speaking the language? Is it the tones, or is it maybe something else?
I think at this point it's probably not the tonal aspect that's most challenging. It's just remembering how to say certain things. I mean, remembering vocabulary for sure. I once had a Chinese teacher, and probably this applies to all languages, but she had picked up from research that you need to have exposure to a new term 20 times before you will actually remember it and use it properly. So that's a lot of, and in different contexts. So that's a lot of times that you need to be exposed to something before you're really going to remember it. I had another teacher who was terrifying. She had read somewhere that we only remember 20% of what we learn.
Oh, so they just teach you 5 times as much?
That's what she did. Okay. Instead of assigning 20 characters per day, she assigned 100, and hoping that we would remember 20 of them. Oh. I said, 老师，我想不是这样子，我可能没有办法学那么多。But anyway.
真的。
Yeah.
太多了。I mean, 100 a week, 100.
It was a day.
A
that
day?
That was an intensive class that met every day. So it was 500 characters a week. We quickly fell behind.
Fascinating.
I'm lost for words. I don't know. That's remarkable.
Pedagogy still matters.
Yes, it's very important.
That's wow. Well, you made it through, right?
Yeah.
You
made it
passed
through.
the course, right?
And I think with languages too, it's important to enjoy yourself, and to think of language not as a task, but just as a means for communication.
Yes.
And not to be too hard on yourself.
Yes.
And one nice thing about Taiwanese people are very friendly and very encouraging. So if you make the attempt to use the language, people appreciate it. And I think that's true for Americans too. Like if you attempt to use English, Americans will respond positively to that. So I think using it to communicate, it's a means to an end, not an end in itself.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
So if we think of language in that way, then I think we can make mistakes, and it doesn't really matter so much.
Yeah, and it's a hard point to make a lot of the times, I find, because we have all these tests, especially for students that want to go abroad, where they need to hit a certain standard in a test, and that's the goal with English, is to hit that standard. And it's hard to communicate, like, really, it is about communication ultimately. It needs to be about you as a learner. Like the reason they have those standards is so you can demonstrate that you can use the language in America or in another country, in an academic or professional setting, instead of, can you do the test? So it's this little change of mindset that I appreciate. Yeah, I think that's really important.
It's really interesting because what I'm doing here at NCU is when I have the consultations with the students, instead of like telling them to work on speaking, what I tell them to do is to work on making opinions and having an identity in the language. It's this idea that like to truly answer some of these questions on like the IELTS exam, for example, you need to have an opinion about it. And the more you actually care about the thing, the more you'll go out of your way to find the vocabulary for it.
Wow.
And that's what I've also noticed with, what I do in Mandarin. I'll be on the top of one of the baiyue, and I'll be completely fine. No problem talking with the people because, I love hiking. I love the, vocabulary around the hiking, and put me in a different situation and I'll struggle,
Right.
It's about like kind of having that sense of like who you are in relation to the concept, and it's sort of like the language will come with it, provided you actually care about it. So that's kind of what Francis and I have been doing in terms of like test prep for speaking specifically.
Great.
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah. Alrighty.
Okay.
So that is our episode for today. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Ring the bell.
Hit that bell.
And Dr. Nadeau, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, Alden.
Thank you very
William.
much.
It was a pleasure to join you today.
Yeah, appreciate you. Appreciate you having here, or being here, rather. I can speak this language, I promise. Have a nice day, everyone, and we'll catch you in the next one.
Goodbye.
Bye-bye.